Thank you. Hi, John. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So I'm also very excited because I'm a huge Party Down fan. So when they announced the third season, I was really worried. And then it is so good that I was just like, oh, no, this is fine. It feels like Party Down never left. And
Thank you. We're delighted
for
to hear that. We Nothing would be worse for us if we messed up our favorite thing. So,
but for you and getting to come back to the show after all these years and tell this story in a way that like I feel like you had to wait for the world to be where it is to continue Party Down because it's just so perfect. How is that kind of coming back into this world and bringing it to life for a newer audience and people who have come to the show throughout the years because of these actors who might not have watched it in the original run?
well, I think, more than anything, we just wanted to sort of kind of be true to the spirit of the show and kind of who the characters would be now. We immediately knew that we couldn't just start back up where we left off and everyone's just there hanging out or whatever. We didn't want the show to be depressing or grim, of the idea that nobody ever moved 1 inch from where they were. So a lot of the work for us was in just trying to sort of figure out a way that we could sort of, be true to the idea that some of these people moved on in various directions, continued doing the same thing or what have you, but that you could also figure out how do you contrive that they all get back together? How do you kind of, keep the show while also being kind of true to the reality of how, people live their lives. Our lives are very different 12 years later, and, we expect, and we're looking at the world kind of from an older perspective than when we first started. And so we wanted to sort of have that be a part of how we, address the show 12 years later. I think if we had, if we'd been lucky enough to do it a year after the second season, we, would have been doing something very similar to that. And so I think, we didn't set out to do any specific thing. We just wanted to do more of the show. And so once they said, okay, get to work, then we had to sort of figure out like, okay, now what do we do? But we definitely wanted to sort of reflect, not just where these characters are, but our own kind of take on how the world has evolved and our own lives and perspectives have changed as well.
Yeah, and I think what's fascinating to me is I think the pilot of Party Down has one of the best buttons of a pilot episode ever with "Are we having fun yet?" I truly remember laughing out loud the first time I ever watched that episode. And with this series, seeing which characters you've chosen to kind of still be with Party Down and who gets to kind of move on is really fascinating. Was that a conversation you guys had with all of each other, like the actors, or did you kind of have an idea of like, well, that character for sure would still be with Party Down. He wasn't going anywhere, or she was always meant to leave. Like, what was that process like?
Well, I think everything, from the end of the first two seasons, we all kind of had a notion of who would be where and what they would be doing. For instance, the idea that, Roman's still going to be there. We were just like, well, of course. And, I feel like even in the pilot of the season 1 pilot of Party Down, you could kind of get a sense of, where Henry might end up going just because of what he'd been through and kind of, the fact that he's just in this regular kind of, ranch house in the valley and thinking like, this would be nice. And so we all were in pretty general agreement of, from the end of, when end of Constance's wedding, you kind of know where she ends up. So we were able to just kind of project 12 years into the future pretty easily amongst our, we didn't have competing ideas for, what had happened to everybody. We were able to kind of pretty quickly be like, here's where everybody's at. Now we just have to figure out how to get everybody back together.
Yeah, thank you so much for Party Down in general, and Party Down season 3 filled a hole in my heart that I didn't realize was there because I'm
genuinely delighted to hear that. So thank you.
So thank you so much, and thank you for talking with me today. It was a delight.
Oh, it's my pleasure.